Diversity Beyond the Checkbox is your trusted podcast for meaningful conversations. And now there's a new way to dive deeper. Visit our new website, beyondthecheckbox.com. It's loaded with podcast episodes, valuable resources, and even exclusive bonus content. Learn more and join the movement. Check out beyondthecheckbox.com today by clicking the link in the show notes. Now let's get to the episode.
Welcome to Season 10 of Diversity Beyond the Checkbox, proudly presented by the Diversity Movement and part of the Living Corporate Network. I'm your host, Jackie Ferguson, author, business leader, and human rights advocate. In this podcast, we're diving deep into the stories of trailblazers, game changers, and glass ceiling breakers who share insights in professional success and personal development. Thank you for being part of this amazing community. Enjoy the show. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Diversity Beyond the Checkbox. Today, I am talking to Karen Baker, marketing and communication professional and president of Boathouse Group. Karen, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Jackie.
Of course, I'm excited to have you. Karen, you've had an interesting professional journey to your current role. Will you tell us a little bit about some of those experiences leading up to Boathouse?
You know, it's so funny. I was writing something the other day and it was asked me the question around your journey, and I had to think back, because there's certain things that drop off your resume after a certain amount of time,
That's right.
So, and this particular position had dropped off my resume because it was the first professional position I had coming out of Howard University. And it was with an organization that was focused on housing, economic development, community development. And that was my first introduction to coming into the workplace, was around this thing of equity. We were lobbying. We were having events, pulling together federal and state organizations. And it was interesting because just a couple of days ago, it really made me understand the impact that it has led on my career, by being in that organization, all women,
Wow.
were in the organization. They were all lobbying. They fought so extremely hard. I was with them for 2 years at 21, 22 years old. They made a huge impression on my career. And so when I was thinking about, okay, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and, social impact and social justice, my family history does that. But here's my first position at 22 years old, and I land in this type of work. And so that journey has continued to show up even through marketing and communications. I really have chosen companies as clients prior to coming to Boathouse that were understood, had a conscious awareness of their work, wanted to impact community, understood that there were disparities going on within communities as well, too. So that journey has been continuous since 22 years old, So your question is very timely from a reflection a couple of days ago to get the Boathouse and be able to lead a social impact practice.
I love that. I love that. Karen, can you get into some of the cool companies that you've had the opportunity to work with? And I want to talk to you about, taking on these big roles at such a young age and not being afraid to move from this point to that point. So if you'll talk to us a little about some of the cool organizations that you've been able to partner with over the years.
Yeah, my first out the box was BET, Black Entertainment Television. It laid the ground for me, people that I still am in touch with today. I mean, I was saying to someone, I was in Miami a couple of weeks ago, being able to be in a room and Wu-Tang Clan is there and, Mariah Carey and Black Eyed Peas, and get exposed to those people so young, and have a level of authority, in the work that you was doing was I'm forever grateful in that, and then, having clients that you work with like Minority Business Development Agency, which is federal, but you're still looking at export and import and how we need to increase the amount of founders of color coming into import and export, and then working on something with Puma, and Red Bull. And, it has ranged the gamut, of very exciting clients to work on. So I really appreciate the cool clients,
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
really talk about them as well. So it
I
has
love
been,
it.
it is a very interesting career. I think at some point I'll write a book, Jackie.
I love that, Karen. You should. You definitely should. And I want to seize on the word clients because you didn't go work for these companies. You started your own company and they were clients. So tell us about the courage that it takes to, I mean, so many of us at 30, 40, 50 still, we want to start that business. We want to step out and do something different, but we don't have the courage to do it. Tell me a little about how you made that decision so young to start your own thing and then gain these clients that have, worldwide brand and appeal. Tell me how that came about.
It's such a good question and a great reflection for myself because I was 24 years old when I started my company and I was the only. I didn't have any mentors, any advisors. They came along the way, but to start it, I didn't have any. And so, I wonder too what was in me. I just think determination. That I knew I wanted to own my own business. I was very clear on that, and left the first job I told you about to do that, to start my own, and stumbled, fell. Like people say, I fell up
Uh-huh.
because I fell down and got right back up.
I love it.
And really understanding what it meant to own a business, the financials of it. Hiring contractors, going after clients that were very big companies like you said, are very known, and them saying, "Oh, we're gonna give you a chance. We're gonna give you the opportunity to actually come in here, consult for us, lead major projects, and build your business. And maybe it's part of just being the first." And people looking at that like, wow, here's a 24-year-old coming in knocking on my door, saying I can do this, and give me the opportunity to do this. So I think that was also helpful to have people that believed that you were capable.
That's so amazing, Karen. And tell us a little about where that courage comes from to move from one big thing to the next big thing. And again, so many of us want to make that leap, but we can't summon the courage or we're thinking about what could go wrong. Tell me where that courage comes from, Karen.
I think, I give a lot of credit to my dad because he was never one. He said, do what you want to do, and you can do what you want to do. We never heard him, particularly to myself, say, I don't know if you could do that. There was never doubt that came from him. When I started something or began anything, he would just listen, but he instilled in us consistently, like, you could do whatever you want to do, because he told me, he said, if I was young at the time I grew up and someone said that to me, he said, I think I would have been a different person. So it made me a different person, as a result of that. And I come from a background of civil rights leaders, who, as anyone knows, even now in this day and age, that you got to have the wherewithal to push past. You got to have the wherewithal to sometimes not listen to what is being said and know that it's right, and move forward with that. And so I think, people say give credit to your ancestors, since my dad is now an ancestor. I said I give credit to that being put in me very young. I'm not very young, and it just stayed with me, And so sometimes you move not even realizing that you're moving differently from other people, And so really at that young, I was moving differently from other people.
I love it.
Mhm.
It's so important to remember that we as parents, as aunts, uncles, grandparents, family, friends can really sow into the young people in our lives and really change their outlook and combat that societal impression of what they can and can't accomplish and when they can and can't accomplish that. And I think that's amazing that your father did that. He also, from what I gathered from our first conversation, Karen, registered a lot of Black voters during civil rights. Can you tell me a little about that?
Yeah, that was my grandfather lived to be 102.
Yes, you told me
He
all that.
passed December of 2023, and by the time he was 101, he had registered 50,000 people to vote. And I'm talking about 50,000 African Americans to vote. That's a level of determination I don't know that a lot of people have. He was just bent on the fact that we were deserving of the same privileges and we should be taking advantage of the same privileges that were there. I think I shared with you when I attended his funeral, my aunt gave me a picture of him with Run DMC,
Uh-huh.
and because he was registering people at their concerts in the 80s. He was like, meet people where they are. He would go sit in the parks and meet people in the parks to register them to vote. So really, when people talking about you really want to impact the community, you have to go where that community is. That was a lesson we watched him consistently repeat over and over again till 102, till 102 years old. It's like you gotta show up, and when you show up, you gotta be ready to encourage people, to make them understand the importance of the work and why they should be engaged in the work. Yeah.
I love that. So that bold audacity is
Yeah.
generations back, Karen.
Yes. Yes.
Love it. I love it. Karen, what advice do you give to those that are afraid to make that big leap or think they need to have a clear laid out path for their future or they're nervous? Tell me what advice you have for them.
It's a very simple word to say, but maybe not to do, and that's just start, right? You have to start, even if it's the evenings that you take from your job to write a little bit about your goal and your vision, right? And then figure out the people that need to be surrounded to make that happen. Then you say, well, I'm just going to show up at this thing, and network a little bit and start to get myself out there. You do have to start, because I have known people who have had business ideas in their head forever and they never get out. And it's always about, oh, I need enough money. I need more money to make it happen. As soon as I get enough money, and that can never be the answer.
Mhm.
It can
That's
be your
true.
problem sometimes,
Right.
but that doesn't mean you don't start, though. That doesn't mean you don't start. And thing is, I think a lot of people, Jackie, are scared that they'll fail at it. That I'll get this business going and it won't do well. It is the best thing that could ever happen to you is for a business to fail, right? And then you pick it back up and you start it again from the failures that you already know, right? That is the best thing that can happen to you. But I think that's the greatest fear. I'm going to start and it's going to fail. So I know it's already going to fail. So I'm not going to start it.
Yep, that's exactly right. I love that. Just start because you're right. It may not work exactly the way you want, but the lessons that you learn along the way will help you refine it and give you opportunity to go again. I think
Yeah, it's
that's
called risk.
amazing.
It's
Absolutely.
risk. Yeah.
Absolutely. Karen, tell us a little more about Boathouse and what that organization does.
So Boathouse is now about finishing up his 22nd year of being in business. Two co-founders who were rowers at Penn State together, during their career in and out, and decided to start a company together. And they were also, at a fed up point, like what we're seeing where we are and how people are being treated. We don't want a business like this. We don't want to be part of a business like that. So the foundation of Boathouse is built on team, is built on supporting the people that are there for you, and driving a level of change internally and externally. So we came in, as a traditional marketing advertising company, I would say. And over my time there, we've had added three more pillars to our services. And it was really things that they were doing, but really needed to label it, needed to make it a service, needed to make it a revenue stream. And so as a result, we added those three. I have five services now. And we really are looking at the fact, has Boathouse been and should it continue to build itself as an advocacy based business model? Because it gives back so much.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Mhm.
And it's so important for founders of an organization or principals within an organization to understand the balance between that give back and their business model, right? And it's so important to combine the two, not only for your brand but for the employees that you have and the ones that you want to recruit. So I think that's amazing. Karen, marketing has gone through quite an evolution over the past 25 years, from marketing to a specific majority group, to developing multicultural marketing strategies, to understanding inclusive marketing. What do businesses need to know about marketing to customers in 2024?
It's interesting having conversations because I'm always pitching in business. I've talking to not only chief of staff, CMOs, chief of DEI, and very large companies I'm having conversation with. Some are saying a mistake that was made before was segmenting out different cultures, and that they need to get back to integrating marketing and understanding really what multicultural marketing means. So I think that's what's coming in 2024 is the understanding that don't segment out Latin, African American, Asian Pacific Islander and hire a firm to only do that. You know, can you hire firms that understand the gamut of all of them? Now, what it's going to require is our marketing firms to show up that do understand all, that are actually going to hire people within the organizations that sit within these segments, because no one's saying all cultures are the same or we need to group them all together. That's not what's being said. Is that the understanding of marketing to more than just only that particular community has not necessarily done them well by doing that. So I think that is what the shift is that's going to come, and I think that that's going to really help us make more impact, particularly since we know a lot of those communities are connected, right? They have some level of connection in how traditions, rituals, their needs, particularly in this political climate, are going to be met. So I think that's what's going to start to shift some.
Absolutely. Words are powerful, and communication is key to success in business and relationships. How do you ensure your words foster welcoming, inclusive, and safe environments for everyone? The answer is inclusive language. The Inclusive Language Handbook, a guide to better communication and transformational leadership, available in paperback and as an ebook, explains today's best practices for inclusive word choice and common phrases to avoid, with guided exercises to increase understanding and improve your impact immediately. No matter what your role, make sure your words land respectfully and effectively. Order your copy today by visiting theinclusivelanguagehandbook.com. And there's so much to think about. You're thinking about
Yeah.
needs, habits,
Yes.
fears, goals, right? And those all can be different based on that particular group. But
Yep.
as our society becomes more and more diverse,
Correct.
marketing professionals need to understand that diversity and be able to integrate that into those campaigns.
Yeah. I can't wait until people start using the term new majority.
Mm-hmm.
People are hesitant in using that, and it's not new.
That's right.
But you keep hearing still minority population,
Mm-hmm.
right? But with the diversity that we have amongst communities, there is a new majority. And
Absolutely.
so let's see when the new majority starts to be used as a term, particularly after this election.
Absolutely. That's so true. That's so true. Karen, what advice would you give for young marketing professionals coming out of college about what to focus on as they embark upon their careers?
That's a great question, because what I'm seeing, and the other day I got so frustrated with someone young. I'm like, you got a network. You cannot, you can't be in marketing and just sit behind a computer. You have to network. So I really advise them to network and intern. It's not paid or unpaid. Everybody wants to be paid, but at the end of the day, if someone is willing to train you and give you the expertise that they've acquired over 30, 40 years, you better take that opportunity to get to know that, because marketing keeps changing. It always changes, but there's certain things that remain the same, right? There's certain things that remain. There's certain tools in your tool belt. Doesn't matter what generation you talk to, they're still using those particular tools. So really network. Make sure you get the training while you're in college, because you're getting theory in school, right? You're not getting that in the workplace, so that you could come in pushing yourself ahead. Otherwise, you're not going to know. You're going to stumble trying to apply because you won't have any application.
Absolutely. And the thing is, Karen, when you talked about someone that's training you and having those mentors, that's so invaluable to people as they're beginning their careers, because you're right, you have the theory, but you don't know where to go. You don't know how that's applied. You don't know the nuance of how to write for marketing outside of that class, right? And how to A/B test and all of the things that matter when you're a marketing professional, trying to move up. And I think that's such great advice. Karen, talk to us about social arts and culture. You're the founder of that. Tell us a little about what that organization does.
Yeah, that's my baby too. So I founded Social Art and Culture 14 years ago because I saw a gap in the community for artists who wanted to be socially responsible and make social change. It's like, where do you go as an artist when your work is dedicated to social injustice, economic injustice, homelessness? Where do you go to ensure that you have a community around you? So we built Social Art and Culture to fill that gap. We built it to be a collective, collaborative organization. So we join with other organizations and to ensure to amplify a message is what we do. We usually don't do things singular as an organization. And that was, at that time, not a model. More people are looking at how can they collectively come together, what we call a joint issue promotion when you have a corporate. How do you push an issue as two organizations, four organizations to amplify more and not get in this place of competitiveness? Because, an issue, you can't compete on a social issue, right? So get in a place of competitiveness because of funding. So we started our, social art and culture with that premise in the beginning that we would not compete against any organization. We were there to push the social issues.
Mm, love it. I love it. And let's go back, Karen, to the marketing piece. Certainly, we have all seen some of the marketing missteps over the decades and ways that organizations have gotten it very, very wrong. Tell us, what do we need in the room as we're creating these campaigns to ensure that our messages are resonating the way we want them to with the people that are listening?
Yeah, I spoke at something a couple weeks ago, and I used Shirley Chisholm's quote about the fact that if they don't, there's no chair at the table, you bring your own folding chair. We need to be at the table. When the conversation is had from idea, not when it's in execution. You need an idea. You need to look around that room and say, who's representing what we're about to do? If no one in that room is represented, but you're going to make the decisions anyway, there's problem number one. And it will end up being a problem all the way throughout the process, right? So don't make it so people have to keep creating their own tables. Make it so that you include them in the table, in the conversation, and use their ideas. Use what they're saying. Don't like I tell people, don't give people PTSD by having them be the first in that room, and then you turn around and it's such a nightmare, when they come out of it. Be prepared to receive people at that table in addition to welcoming them to that table. But we need diversity at that table.
Absolutely. And, Karen, one of the things that I hear from a lot of marketing agency leaders is, well, right now we don't have a lot of diversity, but you can get that diversity in your network, right? Sometimes it's important to bring people in as you're trying to recruit to be a more, multicultural, multi-dimensional agency. It's important to bring those people in from outside the organization to really review the work that you're doing, because so many organizations work in a silo, and then when they make a mistake, now they're looking for us, right, to come
To come
in and
correct it.
fix it. Exactly
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Exactly right. And it's so much easier and better for your brand to have them at the table with a voice, right? Because the other concern is they're at the table, but they don't really have a voice that's heard, right? But they think it's checking the box to have them there at the table. But you're not, as you said, taking that advice for the use of those campaigns. It's so important to really think about what they're saying, what their suggestions are,
Yep.
their ideas and recommendations.
Yeah, and
That's
that
so
external
important.
person, like you said, is important. I mean, we
Mhm.
we made a 3-year commitment to someone who was a DEI consultant for us, and currently we're working on the danger of a single story, which gets at what you're talking about as well. Because I think within companies, you can also have the danger of a single story, right? It's just not the people that work for you. That brand can have the danger of a single story. And so as a result, then you create campaigns and initiatives around your own understanding versus having that second person, third person, whatever, say, you don't need to think about that. Let's check that because that message may do this, and unconscious bias is not people something that people check all the time, in the work that they do. So you need that ear, and I think CEOs are responsible for that.
Mhm.
They have to pay attention to that.
That's exactly right. And I love that you're talking about DEI from a marketing lens because a lot of times organizations think that DEI sits in HR and it's siloed there. But diversity, equity, and inclusion needs to penetrate all aspects of an organization. And marketing is the piece that's so outward facing that is one of the most important places that it be included. And so I think what you're saying there is so important.
Yeah, it's very interesting too because I think people forget that you know diversity also is imagery, right? It's the imagery is what you're saying. It's so impactful. Marketing is just amazing tool and it is so powerful. I think some people don't understand how powerful it is, Jackie, that it can make you speak differently. Because a word can be put out and people use it. And then as a marketer, I always go, where did that come from? And no one knows, right? Because marketing has put that word out there and people have attached to it and don't even know why they're using it, right? And that is extremely important in diversity, equity, inclusion, that we even look at language that goes out into campaigns and initiatives and what it can do to the end user as well.
Absolutely. I love that. That's such good advice. Karen, what is the message that you want to leave our listeners with today?
If you are in this work in marketing and communications, if you have not paused to think about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in your work, please pause. Pause and think about the work because whether you fully understand what social impact is, and social impact isn't easy, it takes time. Once you start to pause to understand what diversity, equity, inclusion means, because a lot of people go, oh, you're just talking about race. Not true. It's not the only layer of diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you pause to understand what it means, you'll understand how it needs to impact the work that you deliver out into the public. So I charge people to pause and be able to reflect on how that impacts marketing and communications because it absolutely does.
Absolutely, Karen. That's so true. And if you think about the buying power of these diverse groups, whether you're thinking about women or you're thinking about Black people or you're thinking about LGBTQ plus or people with disabilities, the buying power is so significant that they cannot be ignored.
Not at all. Not
I
at all.
love that.
Keep trying.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right, Karen. Karen, how can listeners learn more about your work and connect with you?
You can definitely learn more about the work at Boathouse Inc.com. A lot of the stuff is we're actually updating our website, which is launches next week. So
Exciting.
yeah, to really be reflective of the conversation we're talking about now, as well. And then you can also look at social art and culture. .info as well. Always email me. Hit me on LinkedIn. I always respond to people. I'm a believer in not leaving people hanging in response. So communication is important to me. So please do reach out.
Love it. And Karen, one fun question because I'm interested. Can you tell us a story? You've interacted and worked with so many amazing people. Can you tell us one of your favorite stories about a celebrity or a well-known person that you've interacted with over the years?
That's a good one because I was telling many stories in Miami. So this one is very special to me because I was such a fan of her, and it was Tina Marie. And I got a chance to meet her when I was at BET, and just such a warm person, number one. And I was taking her back. Her daughter was with her, and we're taking her back. And she turned to me and she said, "You are so beautiful." And I was
Oh,
like, "I am going to take that."
I love it.
And she just kept talking, and we had a very great conversation. And the very next year, she passed. The very next year, she passed. Yeah. So it was just meeting someone as a fan, and then the genuineness of their personality comes across from what you hope it's going to be, and
Yeah,
it ends up being that. It was that really stands out in my head for a very memorable.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Karen, thank you so much for
Oh,
being
this
here.
has
This
been
has been a great
awesome.
conversation.
Thank you so much, Jackie. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks for listening to this episode of Diversity Beyond the Checkbox. If you loved this show, please take a moment to share it with a friend, leave a rating and review, and subscribe so you'll be reminded when new episodes are released. Become part of our community on Instagram, LinkedIn, X, YouTube, and TikTok. Or subscribe to our newsletter at beyondthecheckbox.com. This show is part of the Living Corporate Network, sponsored by the Diversity Movement, and edited and produced by Earfluence. I'm Jackie Ferguson. Take care of yourself and each other.